Hello everyone, I am TitanicSizedReviews. I review movies, shows, and video games, and today I'm talking about Arachnophobia. It is a 1990 PG-13 horror, comedy, thriller movie. It's an hour and 49 minutes long. This will be my 14 of 31 Halloween horror movies. This one's not like super scary. Obviously, it's really only scary if you're already afraid of spiders. It's great. This movie's great. It's probably the best spider movie ever made. Honestly. Alright, I'm gonna get into it. I'm gonna go over the story real quick. The basis of the story. And then give my review. So this movie is going to follow mostly Dr. Ross. He's the main character. His family, where they moved to this small town in, I believe, Ohio. Might be wrong about that. It's going to follow some people in the town and how they get, well, attacked by the spiders. It starts out with Mr. Manley, a resident of this Ohio town who's on an expedition for this professor out somewhere in the rainforest. And that professor's specialty is insects. I think it's pretty easy to grasp what's going to happen. Mr. Manley is going to be bringing back a friend. Well, Mr. Manley is on this expedition. They go towards this big tree that's in a rock. It's just a hole. It's a hole in the ground. It's like almost like a mini forest in this hole in the ground. It specifically keeps the spiders kind of contained there so that way they don't get out to the rest of the world, which they explain later on. Well, the professor uses a fumigator in this area, starts dropping bugs so they can collect them and learn more about them. And obviously some of these big spiders fall down too. They realize these spiders don't have any sexual organs, so they cannot reproduce. Only the, I'm just gonna say, king and queen can. It's similar to like an ant hive, but the ant queen can just mate with anyone. In this one, the ant queen, or the spider queen, sorry, would need to mate specifically with the spider king, the male. Well, during this time, a spider sneaks into Mr. Manley's bag. They get back from their expedition towards the beach where they're doing all the research. He's sick, and he lays down, and the spider comes out and bites him, and he dies. Mr. Manley dies. So Mr. Manley gets sent back home, and as he's getting sent back in this shitty-looking crate, the spider crawls in through a hole. And it'll be the king, which they call the general in this movie. It's the general. You transition to the town, and Manley's all decayed. Looks like he's lost all of his fluids, like a vampire sucked him dry. The spider gets out, doesn't manage to hurt anyone. No one sees it. A bird picks it up. And obviously the spider kills the bird. The spider gets dropped near the home where our Dr. Ross ends up moving into with his family. And he talks about right away when you see like this basic house spider, how he's deadly afraid of spiders, and at one point when he was younger he got paralyzed as a child when a spider crawled on his leg. He was just so scared. Arachnophobia. Well, the mom takes the spider and puts it in the barn because she decides not to kill it because she's not as what's the word I'm looking for? Arachnophobe? Arachnophobe. And apparently the general can actually mate with this spider. So it does. And it's not in the case where like a normal spider, for instance, would eat the male spider. The general's huge and the female one is not. So that doesn't happen. Alright. You transition again to Ross going to meet the only other doctor in this small town, Metcalf. He's like an old guy. And he was originally supposed to retire and decides not to in this moment. Obviously, Ross is pretty unhappy. Well, he goes outside. He's pretty disappointed, not sure what he's going to do. Mrs. Hollowitz, his neighbor, very nice lady who's super, super short. And Lloyd, the shitty sheriff, kind of meet him. Lloyd's kind of a dick. Hollowitz puts him in his place. They walk off, and Dr. Ross is going to go give her an exam later. And she's later on going to help him throw a party so that way he can meet people and hopefully get more clients. Well, his wife, Molly, goes to the barn at some point, again, to take pictures of these, like, giant webs. You're also introduced to the neighbor, Bunny, when Ross is home. This is just important so you know that there's another kid around, that their two kids, their son and their daughter, kind of have a friend. It really doesn't matter that much. Well, at some point you're going to get a transition and see a spider egg in the barn just pulsating, to indicate that there's about to be a lot more of these very, very poisonous spiders around. You transition to the party for this doctor, and then you kind of transition back again real quick to see the spiders kind of hatching and just going everywhere, expanding out in a wide area. At the end of this party, you see a spider gets into Hollowitz's house. During that night, the spider obviously bites her and she dies. Very sad. Everyone liked her. She was a very nice lady. Well, you transition again to Ross, and he's renovating his basement, which has very shitty floorboards, and obviously this will play a part in the story as well. He's using a... I'm afraid I don't remember the name of the tool. It's a nailer, but it's a specific kind. Whatever, and it's going straight through the floorboards. Could have stabbed someone in the foot. Would have been bad. He goes upstairs. His wife is trying to call Miss Hollowitz so she can thank her for the party, and sends Ross over there when she doesn't answer. Ross goes and finds her dead. He wants an autopsy, but obviously the older doctor, Madcalf, who's kind of a dick, does not want to allow this to happen. Well, shortly after, the exterminator, played by John Goodman, at his finest, comes over to their house. He's probably the weirdest character in the movie, but he's definitely the funnest. Yeah, he starts looking around in the basement, sees nothing, so he doesn't have to spray anything. He doesn't spray the barn either. He doesn't even go in there. They just kind of introduce you to his character and show you that he's going to be showing up again. Well, at some point, Ross gets an invitation from the coach to go to, the locker room and give the boys a exam real quick to make sure they're healthy, if you know what I mean. They have a conversation about how crickets have just gone quiet and there's no noise about them. This obviously is just to play into the fact that things are happening. They don't fully understand why yet. Obviously, one of the spiders is at the practice, and it gets in one of the boys' helmets during football practice as the coach is teaching them and Ross is just watching. It gets into Miller's helmet, and Miller dies. It's part of a tackle. People begin to call Dr. Ross Dr. Death because they think that he's, bad omen. Everyone's going to die around him. Well, they transition again to Dr. Medcalf at his home, and of course there's a spider in there too. And he gets bit on the foot, and he dies. And then you're introduced to another character called the coroner. I don't know his name, it's just the coroner. Ross obviously wants an autopsy. Coroner's kind of adamant about it, but kind of agrees to it for Dr. Madcalf, assuming his wife does as well. They do. They find out there's poison. And since that doctor's dead, Dr. Ross's business is booming the next day. He's getting all kinds of patients. Fat money. Well, Dr. Ross obviously wants the bodies dug up. And they do. They dig up the bodies, and they find out, yes, they were all bitten by spiders. So they finally have an idea of what is going on. Things are bad. You get a transition of a spider, the general, and I believe the new queen that was born, taking an egg sac into their basement because they don't want to be out in the barn. It's too airy, I guess is the way I would put it. Well, Ross calls the professor guy. He doesn't know that he has anything to do with Mr. Manley at that moment, to talk about the spiders because he's an expert. He sends his assistant Collins to go there and find out what's going on. He does confirm that there are bites. They go to the old doctor's house to look for spiders, and they find a dead spider. Scares Lloyd, the sheriff, half to death. Then they find a live one, and they manage to capture it. Then you get a transition of the gym coach and his daughter. His daughter's in the restroom taking a shower, and a spider just falls on her body, goes down her chest. You don't really see her boobs, you more see a side boob. So, for the perverts out there, sucks to suck. The exterminator gets called over to the coach's house. He doesn't find the spider that landed on her, but he does see a spider outside. Hits it with poison, and the poison does nothing. Kind of like the fumigator does in the beginning of the movie. Does nothing to these spiders. So he just steps on it. It's just, this is important because he's going to mention this later on. They're going to draw a map of all the places the spiders have been sighted. Well, the professor finally shows up, and they test the live spider's venom on a mouse, and it dies. They go to the coroner's house because they need something from him. They find out he's dead as well because he was unfortunate enough to eat a spider. I don't exactly know how his wife died, but she dies too. Well, the professor during this time is off with the sheriff, and they go to Dr. Ross's barn because he realizes there must be something here before they do. He goes, he looks around, kind of tries to bait the spider out, and he does, and the spider kills him too. Well, Ross, the exterminator, and Collins go to his house, and the exterminator goes to spray the barn with super deadly poison to murder everything. Ross and Collins go inside to get the family out, and spiders just start popping up everywhere, crawling from the floors, the ceiling, windows, just everywhere that they can. So everyone's trying to get out. They get out, manage to get out through the restroom, except Ross, who gets trapped and is lucky enough to not get bitten. He kind of goes back out of the restroom into the hallway. Some land on him. He gets scared, freaks out a little bit, falls over his balcony, and goes right through the crummy floor with the shitty floorboards. Jeez Louise. Sorry about that. And that's when he sees the nest. He gets in a bit of a fight, manages to kill the queen. He then gets attacked by the general. And he tries to burn the general. And he doesn't succeed. He manages to kind of get knocked on his ass. And then that moment where he mentions how he was paralyzed as a child from a spider climbing up his leg happens again, because the general starts climbing up his leg while he's an adult, and he's just not moving. He's just kind of scared. And he manages to light the general on fire. General's not fully dead, though. It's crawling around on fire. You can hear the spider screams, and I can speak to this to a degree. Big insects, when they die, they do have like a certain noise that they make. It's weird. Well, it jumps at him while it's on fire, and he manages to get his nail gun that's down there. Shoots it right into the nest. It's great. It's great. They transition to city life shortly after this, you know. Everything's fine. No more spider problems. That's basically the end of the movie. I love this movie. Like, I do. I love this movie a lot. I think it's great. It's a classic. If you're afraid of spiders, it's not for you. If you are squeamish around insects, it might not be for you either, because this almost feels like it could be real. The way all the spiders look in the movie look great. Like, all of them look creepy as fuck. I think the comedy is, it's good because it's not like, again, it's not like super obvious. It's not like trying to be super jokey. It does a good job. It's really only scary, again, if you're afraid of spiders already. So, in that regard, it's not the greatest horror movie. But if I'm counting horror comedy together, I think it's fantastic. As a thriller as well. I give it a 10 out of 10. I do. I really like this movie a lot. Maybe you agree. Maybe you disagree. Please let me know. Leave a comment. Leave a like. Subscribe. Help me out. Please. Thank you for watching.